Welcome back to our YouTube channel, The Book Digest. Today, we're diving into a powerful and practical summary of Michael Lewis's explosive book, Flash Boys. It's a story about how our financial markets were secretly rewired, creating a system that wasn't just fast, it was fundamentally, and maybe deliberately, unfair.
Look at this number, 4 milliseconds. That is a tiny fraction of the time it takes you to blink. And yet, this tiny slice of time became a weapon for a new breed of Wall Street trader, letting them skim billions of dollars from the market. So how on earth did they do it? Well, that's the mystery we're unraveling today.
So our story really kicks off with this one guy, a trader at the Royal Bank of Canada named Brad Katsuyama. And you gotta understand, he wasn't some kind of rebel or a whistleblower. He was just a normal guy trying to do his job who back around 2007 noticed something was off. A glitch in the system that hinted at something way bigger.
Here's what was happening. He'd go to make a big, totally routine buy order, and something bizarre would happen. The moment he'd click the buy button, the shares he was trying to buy would just vaporize. Poof, gone. Only to show up again, just milliseconds later, but at a slightly higher price. Every single time.
So let's just walk through the daily frustration Brad was facing. He sees, let's say, 10,000 shares for sale at $31. Simple enough. He clicks to buy them all, but instantly, a huge chunk of them disappears. And the shares that are left, whoops, they're now $31.01. This wasn't a mistake, it was a pattern, and it was costing his clients real money on every trade.
So what in the world was going on? Well, Brad was seeing a super high-tech version of a really old and really illegal Wall Street trick called front-running. In simple terms, someone was seeing his intention to buy, and in the blink of an eye, they were racing ahead of him, buying up the stock, and then turning right around to sell it back to him at a higher price.
You know, this was a puzzle Brad just couldn't let go of. So he got a team together there at RBC, and they started their own investigation. They were going to become detectives, basically, to crack the code and figure out how this digital front-running was even happening in what's supposed to be the fairest market in the world.
And what they uncovered was that the US stock market, it's not just one place anymore. It had shattered into over a dozen public exchanges and dozens more of these private trading venues called dark pools. And they were all in different physical buildings spread out across New Jersey and New York, all linked together by miles and miles of fiber optic cables. All right, so here's how the race starts. When a trader like Brad places a big order, the system is supposed to split it up and zap it out to all those different exchanges at the exact same time to find the best possible price.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. The speed of light isn't actually instantaneous. Because all those exchanges are in different buildings, an order is naturally going to arrive at the closest one first, even if it's just by a few microseconds.
And guess who's waiting right there at that first exchange? The high-frequency traders, or HFTs. These firms pay massive amounts of money to put their computers literally inside the same buildings as the exchange's computers. That gives them a sneak peek at that first little piece of an incoming order before almost anyone else. And that, right there, is the whole game. The HFTs see that first piece of Brad's order, they know what he wants to buy, and then they use their own super-fast, private connections to race ahead to all the other exchanges. They snatch up all the available stock and then sell it back to Brad's order, which is just arriving, at that slightly marked up price. It was a guaranteed, risk-free profit, and they were doing it millions of times a day.
This was the real gut punch for Brad's team. It wasn't a glitch, it was a feature. The system wasn't broken, it was built this way. They discovered this entire ecosystem of twisted incentives that proved the whole market, from top to bottom, was essentially rigged.
You know, we all have this image in our head of the New York Stock Exchange, people shouting, paper flying everywhere. But the reality is that the market had become this silent, invisible world run by algorithms inside black box servers, hidden away in data centers. It was a world almost nobody actually understood.
And man, was it a tangled web. The exchanges themselves were paying these HFT firms kickbacks called rebates for trading a lot. So what did that do? It made brokers send your orders not to the place with the best price for you, but to the exchange that paid them the biggest rebate. And even those dark pools, which were supposed to be safe havens for big investors, were full of the very same predators. So after uncovering all this mess, Brad and his team had a choice. They could keep their mouths shut, maybe even use this knowledge to make a ton of money themselves, or they could do something about it. They chose to fight back, and this is where the Wall Street revolt really begins.
Their first weapon was a clever piece of software they built called Thor, and the idea was brilliant. It actually slowed down parts of an order on purpose, carefully staggering them so that all the little pieces would arrive at all the different exchanges at the exact same millisecond. It closed that tiny window the HFTs were using to cheat.
But, Thor was really just a band-aid on a broken system. So they decided to do something completely crazy, totally audacious. Build a brand new stock exchange from the ground up. One that was designed from day one in its very DNA to be fair for everyone. They called it the Investors Exchange, or IEX.
So how do you beat an opponent whose only weapon is speed? The genius of their solution wasn't to go faster, it was to go just a little bit slower, by precisely 38 microseconds.
Their solution was so simple it's almost beautiful. They built a speed bump. It was literally a 61-mile-long coil of fiber optic cable, all spooled up in a box inside their data center. Every single order coming in or going out had to travel through that coil. That tiny journey slows every order down by just 38 microseconds, totally unnoticeable to a human, but just long enough to make the HFT's predatory speed advantage completely useless on their exchange.
And then came the moment that changed absolutely everything. In December of 2013, Goldman Sachs, one of the biggest players in the very system that IEX was fighting against, sent a massive trade to the new exchange. It was so much more than just an order. It was a huge signal to the rest of Wall Street that this little revolt was for real, it was legitimate, and it was working.
As you can imagine, when the Flash Boys book came out and IEX really took off, it sent absolute shockwaves through the financial world. It kicked off this huge, fierce debate. It became a battle over what a fair market even means anymore.
And the battle lines were drawn pretty clearly. On one side, you had the critics, saying HFT is just a new name for front-running, that it creates an unfair system built on a speed advantage nobody else can access. On the other side, you had the defenders, saying, hey, we provide liquidity to the market, we make it cheaper for everyone to trade. They just saw it as the natural evolution of technology. But really, the core argument of the book, the thing that really mattered, was this idea. A market that is so complicated that you need a PhD in physics just to make sure you're not getting ripped off. Well, that's a market that has failed. It's broken its fundamental promise of fairness and has lost our trust.
And this whole story leaves us with this massive question, one that goes way beyond Wall Street. In a world that is increasingly built on complex, invisible code, who gets to write the rules that govern our lives? And maybe more importantly, who holds those people accountable to make sure that those rules are fair for every single one of us? That's something worth thinking about. Thanks for joining us.